You ready? Okay. You are my favorite. I love you. High five. You're so good. Mwah. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I'm coming at you barefaced, fresh out of the shower, comfy clothes, and I just want to talk about books. Like, it's been a minute since we've talked about books. Come here, get comfy. It's been far too long since I have dedicated a video purely to books. Today, I'm doing a video that I have been wanting to do for so long, and finally I'm able to do it because last night I finished my last Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I had yet to read. So I have officially now read all of her books, at least I think so. Honestly, I might need to fact check myself on that. I'm pretty sure this is all of them. I'm just simply going to rate them from loved the most to the least. In my experience of reading her old books compared to her more recent books, she has evolved as an author. The complexity of her plots, the writing style, everything is enhanced now. I just find that to be very inspiring as someone who reads a lot of books and a lot of different authors. Seeing that evolution and growth from her over time is so cool. She's a very, very well-known author right now. A lot of people have read her books, so I just want to kind of shed light on some of my opinions. There are some unpopular opinions in here. Mainly one. There's one that I know is very unpopular, but we'll get into that. So I have them all right here, except for one. My sister has my copy of Malibu Rising, but the rest I have sitting right here, right in front of me, ready to give you my rankings. So we're gonna start at the bottom. I have two that actually tie. I have talked about both of these on my channel before, somewhere in the mess that is my channel. I talked about these, but maybe in another life and Forever Interrupted. These are two of her older books. So 2013 and 2015, Taylor Jenkins Reid. I can't say her name for the life of me. Oh my god. I gave these both 2 out of 5 stars. About our main character, Hannah. She is kind of a lost soul. She doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life right now, and she's been moving around a lot. She's kind of a free spirit, but she just feels really behind and really kind of lost. She moves back home to LA. She basically is met with a choice one night when she's out with her friend. She can either go home with this guy that she bumped into, used to date in high school, or she can go home with her friend. And we follow her story through 2 alternating realities. So in one of the realities that it flips back and forth to, she goes home with Ethan, her high school boyfriend, and they kind of rekindle that, and we see what happens there. And then with the other possibility, she does not go home with Ethan and goes home with her friend, and you kind of see how those 2 things switch. I thought that the plot had so much potential. I was so excited to read this book because I truly thought that I was going to love it, and it just fell flat. The writing wasn't for me. I just felt like the characters, I didn't care about them. Like, I had no business caring about them. They didn't feel real to me. They kind of annoyed me. And then at the same level on the bottom here, Forever Interrupted, story of Ben and Elsie, and he basically gets in a tragic accident, ends up passing away, and she's kind of faced with like, okay, that was my entire life plan, was to spend my life with this man, my husband, and it's completely, he's gone, and she has to figure out what she's gonna do. And also he had kind of some odd family relations, so she's stuck dealing with technically her mother-in-law, who she had never met before. So they kind of experience like figuring out how to navigate that relationship. It kind of just follows the story of the healing process of both Ben's mother and his wife Elsie, and the way that they kind of proceed with their lives after he passes. I found this to be very sad, obviously, but I felt like the grief, the way that the characters were coping just did not feel too real to me. It felt like it could have been more. So again, this one just kind of fell flat for me. This plot, I had really high hopes for. This plot, I was kind of like, okay, we'll see. Like, I would not usually pick it up, but because I wanted to do this video and I wanted to read all of her books, I did read it. So I didn't even have that high of expectations going into this one. That one I did, but anyway, 2 out of 5 stars is what I ended up giving these two. These are my least 2 favorite. These go on the bottom of my ranking. Next up, this is going to be the unpopular opinion. Daisy Jones and the Six. Here's my problem with this book. First of all, I want to say something. I watched the entire series on Amazon Prime. Amazing. The problem I have is that I liked the TV series more than I liked the book, and I don't like that. I am always a book girl. I always choose the book. Between book, movie, it's always the book. But for this one, it's the TV series, and I was so upset because I kind of knew that was going to be the thing because I was not a huge fan of this book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars when I first read it. I felt like I kept waiting for something crazy to happen in this book, and it just didn't happen. The characters were infuriating to me at times. I did like how real they felt. That was one of my favorite things about it. I loved the setting. I loved the overall concept, but it just lacked in the plot for me. I liked the writing. I liked the way that it was structured. I thought it was very much a different style than her usual, and I thought it was cool that she tried that out because it's written in like interview style, so it's kind of like, you know what I mean? But the plot just, I felt like when I was reading it, I just wanted something more out of the plot and it just wasn't happening. So I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. I also thought it was really hyped up, so I was very excited to read it. And then when I did read it, I couldn't really understand why it was so hyped. But again, I loved the TV series and ultimately she created that. The casting, can we talk about the casting for that show? They're all exactly what I pictured them to be. Just fell flat for me as far as the plot goes. But other than that, it was a good book. But I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. Next, above that one, we have One True Loves, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So this one is going above. 2 high school sweethearts, Jesse and Emma. He flies helicopters. He ends up in an accident. The plane crashes. We've assumed that he's passed, so she starts her grieving process. And then we find out that he is alive. Years passed and she had met somebody that she also knew from high school. They started kind of falling in love, and then Jesse comes back. Now she has to decide between these 2 men and if she wants to take her husband back that was fighting for his life for years, or if she's outgrown that now and she's healed past it and she wants to stay with Sam, which is the name of the boy that she falls in love with when she's done with her kind of like healing process of grieving Jesse. Honestly, this was great. Demonstrated grief really, really, really well. I feel like this is a perfect book for somebody if getting over the loss of someone. It could be a death. It could be just someone leaving your life. Any sort of loss, I feel like this book is so comforting. Also want to mention that I read these books very, very spaced out from one another, so it is kind of hard to like remember, you know, my memory is awful, but I'm just doing my best, okay? I remember reading this last summer. It was the perfect book to like get me through a travel day. I read it like within the span of 24 hours, I believe. And I was traveling that day, like we had like layovers and whatnot. So I read it on the plane, I read it in the car. It's definitely like a page turner because you want to kind of get to the point where you know the decision that she's going to make, because ultimately she is faced with a decision, and it's the decision that you hope you never find yourself having to make because it's so hard. Like, how does a person do that? I think that's what I love so much about this plot. It's so obscure. Like, it's such a freaky situation to find yourself in. But we see how Emma navigates it, and this one was 2016. So I honestly find that really interesting. These were published a year apart, but this one explores grief in such a more real, honest way compared to this one. I don't know. That's just how I felt, at least. I felt like this one did a really good job of exemplifying true grief and what that would feel like. For this book, it's not like there's crazy twists. It's not like it's a super twisty plot that keeps you on your toes. It just like kind of is analyzing our main character's emotions as she's going through what she's going through, and that in and of itself keeps you turning the pages. But I did feel like the main character wasn't as developed as she could have been. That was like my main criticism. I felt like we could have known her better. She could have been more like defined. Again, it's not my favorite writing from her because my favorite writing from her doesn't come until her later books, but the plot was still very good. And also like between the two guys, you kind of are like Team Sam, Team Jesse, and you go back and forth, and it's very like, it makes you very torn, but it also makes it entertaining. Next up, we have Carrie Soto is back. I love how her characters are intertwined between her books. Like, she's so sneaky about it, and I just love it. I think that that's very cool. She's created such a world for her characters to live in, so it's like, why not continue their stories in other books and focus on different characters and different lives? I just think it's really cool. Carrie is from Malibu Rising, and we learned about her there. She's a professional tennis player. I think because I used to play tennis, I felt more of an appreciation for this book, but I was thinking, like, as someone that never played tennis and doesn't really know anything about tennis, like, would this be as enjoyable? And I'm not sure. So, like, I rated it well. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, but I don't know if other people would, if you don't have that background of tennis. I've heard everyone loved this book, but I do think that it was very, very tennis heavy, and I think I was expecting it to be less. She is a very established tennis player. She's fierce, feisty, retires, and then her record is going to be broken. So she breaks her retirement basically to take that title back. She's coached by her dad. That was probably my favorite part about this book, is her relationship with her dad and how that evolved over time. Beautiful. I believe I cried. I'm pretty sure I cried. And I don't cry at books that often anymore. She's a badass. This is just like a true comeback story, and I really did like it. I thought that it was a cool continuation of Carrie's character in Malibu Rising. This one goes After One True Loves. Next we have After I Do, which I finished last night. I finished this last night before I went to bed. So it's very fresh in my head, and I'm not gonna lie, guys, 4 out of 5. And it's interesting because this is a 2014 Taylor Jenkins Reid book. And as I've said before, I tend not to love her old books, but this one is in my top 3, which is very crazy to me. This book is about a couple that have been together for 11 years. Lauren and Ryan, they met in college and they got married. They've gotten to the point where they literally can't stand each other. They are on each other's nerves. They are afraid that they're falling out of love. So they decide that instead of getting a divorce, they want to just take a year-long break and reevaluate their marriage after that. What I loved was not the writing, not even really the characters. Like, they didn't feel super, super real to me, except Ryan's character. He really did. I felt like he felt very real to me. But again, that's not why I loved it. What I loved was her commentary on marriage throughout this book. As a non-married person, I still felt it. It did such a good job at being so brutally honest about what happens when you've been married to someone for that long, and all of the different characters within have their own opinion on it. The reason I love this book is because of how raw and real it felt to me. It focuses on the power of love and making a decision. And I've noticed that theme about her books a lot, is there's often a big decision that the characters are faced with, and we have to kind of figure out how they're gonna make that, and we're just along for the ride of how they're gonna make that choice. And I love that. So I really liked that about this book. Always fun to root around in somebody else's relationship. So that's basically what you get to do the entire time. It's like, give me the tea, your marriage is failing, let's figure out why, let's see if we're gonna keep pushing through it. And so you find that out, which is really cool. So now we are at my top 2, and I think I gave both of these 5 out of 5 stars upon reading them, but I do like one of them more than I like the other. So second place goes to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read this in January of 2022, so it's been a minute, but this was my first Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I ever read. This was the trending one that I saw everyone talking about, but the plot really, really did appeal to me, and I loved it. Actually, it says I gave it 4.5. I'm confused. I feel like I gave this 5 out of... See, this is what I mean. Like, do I even trust my own rating at this point? No, and neither should you, honestly. If you think that... But this was such a good book. Plot twist, plot twist, plot twist. I did not see it coming. I didn't have any suspicion towards the end. The way that the different characters kind of like overlapped. I loved. Her writing was beautiful in this as well. And this is the first book I read from her that I was, well, this was the first book that I read from her. But this is the book out of all of these that I feel like her writing, I truly could like admire it. Basically, there's a girl named Monique, and she works for a magazine, and she is assigned to basically do a story on Evelyn Hugo. And Evelyn Hugo is a Hollywood icon, lots of scandals, lots of glamour. She was a really, really big deal. There's a lot to her story, a lot to her background. She was very, very famous. Learn about her life story through Monique interviewing her and spending days and days interviewing her, getting to know her. She would only tell her story if it was Monique from this magazine that was the one to conduct the interview. And nobody knows why. It's the question throughout the entire book of why, and then you find out why, and you're like, oh, okay, like, that makes sense. So, very, 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 very good. Loved this. This ranks as number 2. I'll already know what that leaves for number 1, and that is Malibu Rising. Malibu Rising was a 5 out of 5. A 5 out of 5. There is no question. No 4.5s. Like, I don't know what that was all about. It was a 5 out of 5. First of all, love the structure. I could not put this book down, but it was one of those books where I couldn't put it down, but I also had to keep putting it down because I did not want it to be over. I did not want this book to be over. I wanted to be able to just endlessly read it because I was so enamored by the characters, by the setting, everything. I just loved it so much. I felt they were so alive in my head, and I genuinely cared about what was happening with them, and it was everything. Basically, it follows the story of 4 siblings, and they are siblings of a famous actor. So they've kind of got that kind of layer of like high class society, like people know who they are. They throw a party to wrap up the summer, and it's kind of like an annual thing. And basically a lot goes down at this party. Hopefully that builds some intrigue for you because you just have to read it, honestly. But we kind of dive back into their past, their upbringing, their parents, like the dynamic there. Like, there's a lot, and basically the overall theme is like, what are you willing to put up with in the name of like loving people and being loved? How much pain are you willing to put yourself through when you love someone? Where does that line have to be drawn? How do you draw it? So basically, oh my god, it's been a minute. I actually read that one in August, so again, it's a little bit foggy. All of these are kind of foggy to me, except literally the one that I finished last night. But I feel like this is my final ranking. So let's take it from the bottom. We have Forever Interrupted and Maybe Another Life. I'm tying those 2 at the bottom. Then we have Daisy Jones and the Six right above them. We have One True Loves, Carrie Soto is Back, After I Do, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and Malibu Rising right on top. So that is my take on her books. That's my final ranking. Thank you so much for watching this. I am so happy to have some book content back out there. I also want to say a huge thank you for 300 subscribers. When did this happen? It happened like out of nowhere. It happened overnight. Thank you so much for being here. If you're subscribed, if you're just watching this, we'd love to have you join our little fam by subscribing. Thank you so much. I just have so much fun on here with you guys, and it's such a good time. So truly, thank you. I love it. You inspire me. You motivate me to keep making videos, and I promise you there's so much more to come. I wanted to address that before I wrap up this video, but thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any differing or similar opinions. I want to know your thoughts if you've read any of her books. I'd love to discuss. I'm always down for a good book chat. I definitely want to talk to you guys about some of the books that I have read so far this year that I've absolutely been loving. I believe I am on track for my reading goal, which is to read 40 books, I think. I think that was my goal, and I think I'm at 13 or 14 right now. So I'm on track, I'm on pace, but I've read some really great books so far this year, like some really good ones. Oh my god, I can go on and on. But let me know if you guys want to see that. I might do it anyway because I've been wanting to kind of recap that. But anyway, love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!